fall. Say you stand by your man, you tell me something I don't understand. You said you love me, and that's a fact, and then you left me. Good morning, Tony Medley once again, and a nice warm welcome back to my workshop. Today's project, I'm going to make yet another bowl. I'm fanatical about bowls. It's going to be a segmented bowl. However, the twist is I've never ever done the majority of it all in Canadian maple. It's going to have a Sepelle bottom and then flecks of Sepelle, but the majority will be made out of Canadian maple. I think it's a nice, well, I'm hoping it's going to be a nice white or whitish bowl. So all I've got is a piece of Sepelle for the base. It's 9 inches or 275 millimeters in metric. So all we're going to do is we're going to put a cross on it, mark the center, put a cross on it, then obviously we'll get it to round, measure it, and then cut the segments. Right, I have my compass, and the chucking point, or the glued chucking point, what I'm going to put on is 60 mil across. So I put that at 33 millimeters just to give it that little bit more, and all I'm going to do is just mark off where we need to place the point. What we then do is find its optimum diameter, and all we're going to do is just cut these corners off on the bandsaw. It's just to save taking all that down, and my neighbour gets something to burn, just a little bit more to burn. So all we're going to do is cut them off to round, and then get it to round. Right, all I'm going to do is glue that as a chucking point onto the base itself, and all I'm going to do is just use some hot glue in the centre. It's not that cold this morning. If it was cold, what I would normally do is to heat the wood up or get this just a little bit warm so we don't get a failure. To be perfectly honest, as long as it's warm enough, I've never had a failure as yet. Once we know that's gone off that little bit, we can just go round in a circle around the outside and just put some more glue around the outside. Make sure you wait, I don't know, 5 minutes just for the glue to go off. It'll go cold, and then obviously it's okay to put in the lathe. All I'm going to do now is just cut the corners off. It's just to save taking it down on the lathe, and as I just said, it gives the neighbour something to burn on their fire. I like to add a little bit of protection just as a safety measure, and all we're going to do now is just make sure that it'll spin round okay without catching on the tool rest. So we'll get it to round, we'll put a chucking point in the bottom of it, clean all the base, all of the bottom of it, and then obviously we'll turn it over and we will start to glue the segmented parts onto it.
All I'm going to do is just take a little bit out with a 30mm Forstner bit, just so I can put the logo in the bottom. What I'm also going to do, I'm just going to sand this bottom down. I won't do it on camera because there's nothing worse than watching somebody sand things down. It's like watching paint dry. But all I'm going to do, it's a lot easier if you sand this down now than what it is obviously when you got the bowl. It saves putting you there, turning it round and then obviously doing it at the end. So I always do it that way, get it sanded down. I always do my normal grits is 120, 180 and 240, and then followed by Yorkshire grit. Before we cut the segments, all I've done, I've measured the circumference of the base, and what it is exactly 800mm. That's around the base. And all we're going to do, because we're going to do a 12 segment ring, you divide the 800mm by 12, because it's going to be a 12 segment ring. And it gives you 66.5 or 66.6. So I'm also going to put a 10mm fleck of Sepelle into it. So what we're going to end up with is a 56mm length along the long side of the segment. So the most crucial thing, and people have wrote to me and said yes, they can get it now, is you put a wiggly line along one side and you put a straight line along the other. When cutting, you put the first cut, you get an angle on it on number 1, then the first cut is on number 2, the third cut is back onto number 1, and so on right the way throughout the procedure until you get 12 segments. And then obviously what we'll do, we'll cut the flecks of 10mm to go inside it, then glue it up. We're going to make, I propose to do 3 rings, and I'll do 2 rings of maple with a little fleck of Sepelle and a thinner feature ring in the centre, and I'll do that the opposite, so it will be the major segments, or the angled segments will be in Sepelle, and then a fleck of the same length of 10mm of Canadian maple. What I didn't say, and I don't think I've ever said this, is you cannot have a guard when segmenting, so please be careful. That blade will soon cut one of your digits off, and the last thing I want is anybody to do that. So as I say, it's impossible to have the guard over it, so keep your hands at least 6 inches away from that blade. But once you've cut them all, you will have 12 of them, and you will have 12 of that size. And all we've got to do now is just take all the little rough corners off, or fuzzies as I like to call them. But whatever you do, don't, that's already got the angle on, and if you try to sand it down, then obviously you will end up with a very slight gap. So all I want to do now is to show you what we need to do is get them all done, and then we'll get on with gluing them together. Now it's time to do the little flex, and you obviously have to do that side, but if you just put equal pressure on both ends and try to keep it as parallel as possible, then obviously it'll get that little bit smoother, so that we can, when we glue it together, it'll take nice and neat, nice and tight. Well, once they're all sanded down, you will have 6 with the line on the short side, 6 with the line on the back of it, and obviously 12 pieces, or pieces that go inside it. So a little fleck, and all we do, I like to do a dry dummy run, so that you know that there's no gaps and it's all ready for gluing up. So what you do, or what I do, you do a one with a line, one without, one with a line, one without. And the reason that I do that is purely in case your blade is out, all it'll do, it'll compensate because you're cutting it left and right, or on number 1 and number 2. So we'll carry on, we'll do the dry run, and then obviously we'll glue it all up. As I said earlier on, I do a dry run, and all I do it for is just to make sure that they're all in the right position, they're nice and tight, there's no gaps. And what I've ended up, which I think is going to be a lovely contrast, is exactly the dark and light, and the light and dark. And when you glue it up, you always make sure that the wiggly line is always on the top, and inside I've gone over them because they didn't show up on camera, but you've got one with a line, one without, one with, one without, right the way around. And that, as I said earlier on, it's just to compensate in case your blade's out. Right, it's now time to come to my least favourite part of the project, and that's to glue it all up. And I find the easiest way to do it is I always put a little bit of cling film over my sand sheet, and it just saves, I just throw it away rather than clean it all off. So all I do, glue it up just on the dark Sepelle pieces. Make sure that you get the glue all over. And take it like that, and that's all there is to it. What you then end up with is a nice tight fitting ring. And when I say tight fitting, what I'm talking about is the nice joints what you've got made up there, they're nice and tight and just ready to be all sanded down so that they're nice and level, and then they're glued together. Well, it's time to clean the rings up, and all I do is put them in this in the jaws and very, very carefully take it off until it's nice and smooth, and then obviously it's time to glue them together. So careful, because I think the recommendation is 700 revs per minute on this. So just go nice and easy. That is exactly 750 revolutions. And nice and gently. And I use a very sharp skew, and now I haven't took anything off there, so I'll just take a little bit more off. Make sure that your skew is very sharp, and also just to say, scrape it. Now you can still see the glue there, so it just wants that little bit more off. Well, it's time to glue them all up, and what I do before gluing up, I put a little mark on the four corners, and then also I put one on the next ring, and it's surprising, it makes a big difference, because at the end of the day what we want to do is get these all in line, because there's nothing worse, and I've done it many a time, is that once you get it all glued up, you take it out and they're out, and just a little 1/8 of an inch, and it's surprising how much it affects the bowl. So we'll get it glued up.